Hello, everyone. I'm very lucky that we have today with us a senior economist at the NITI Aayog. It's been very tough to find the common time because she's so busy and her bosses call her at all times to do whatever they want her to do. But finally, she has managed to squeeze out the time to be with us. So I'm thankful to her. We have right now Urvashi Prasad. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Urvashi.
Thank you so much for having me here. And yes, apologies, it's taken us a while to schedule this, but I'm glad we could find the time, mutual time, eventually. I'll start off with introducing myself and my background and what I do. I am trained in life sciences, also in health economics, as you mentioned, and in public health overall. And I completed my schooling in India, but then I completed my higher education in the UK. After which I decided to come back and work in India because I did think that uh, especially the public health sector or the development sector more broadly needed a lot of work in our country. And I thought that, if there's any place that I would want to get that kind of experience and also be able to contribute, then, perhaps no better place than India. So I chose to come back. And I actually started off working with a foundation, the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, where I worked for about 5 years. I was overseeing their programs related to urban poverty, and working in urban slums across India. So I got the opportunity to travel to urban slums in most of the major cities across India. So I think that was a very, very important learning experience to really understand, people and behaviors and what it takes to, to make a change at the grassroots level. So I think that was a very important stint for me at the foundation. I then wanted to get even more hands on. So I joined a grassroots NGO, which worked in tuberculosis control, again in the urban slum areas. And there I worked for some time, which was again, my idea was that I wanted to see, what are the challenges in a grassroots organization much more closely, because obviously when you're in a funding agency, then you're a little bit removed from the ground reality. But I wanted to be, right there on the field, seeing what's happening. So that's what I did. And then about 8 years back now, it's almost been 8 years for me now at the NITI Aayog. I joined NITI in 2016. So I was one of the first few lateral entrants that NITI actually hired. And I had the opportunity to work with the vice chairman at that time, who was Dr. Arvind Panagaria. And also, I've worked with the other vice chairman. I've worked with, of course, the CEOs that we have had, and also with Dr. Vinod Paul, because he works, he's member health. And like I said, health has always been a big passion for me, because I think it's a sector which has a lot of inequity. And I think it's also a sector very important for the foundation of the economy. I think we tend to make this segregation between, the economic sectors or the economy and the social sectors. But I think that, health is something which is so fundamental to the productivity of the labor force, to reaping this demographic dividend that we constantly talk about. So I do work a lot in that area, and I am very passionate about healthcare. I think we have a lot of work to do. It is, of course, predominantly a state subject in India. So obviously there are a lot of disparities between states. But I think, from the center, there's a lot that we can do to, work with states to help states. So at least I've tried to work in some of those areas. But I've also worked on a lot of other initiatives at NITI, the overall visioning efforts, right from the 3-year action agenda that we had developed, or the 7-year strategy document, and now working on, the what should be the vision, the strategy for a developed India, hopefully by 2047. So working on a lot of these things, working with state governments on different initiatives, on policy level initiatives, and also some of the G20 related work that came up in different areas. So I think I've had a fairly broad sort of spectrum of work at NITI. And I think also worked on some very important reforms, like the medical education bills, which, we drafted several few years back, and then the Medical Council of India was replaced with the National Medical Commission. And similarly in the Ayush space. So the COVID response, that's something that, I worked very, very closely with Dr. Paul on, because that was a national, obviously, crisis, but also public health crisis, and crisis for the economy overall. So that's also something that I did a lot of work on. So I think I would say that for me, it's been a very interesting journey. It's been a complicated sector, obviously, to work in. I think development space is very complex. There are a lot of challenges. There's always a lot of unfinished business and agenda that remains, and so much more to do. But I think it's been a fascinating experience, especially working with people on the ground, seeing what happens there, instead of just sitting in our meeting rooms or offices, but actually going out there onto the field, is what for me is always the most rewarding, as well as an experience I learn the most from. And I do think that we have a lot to do in terms of also addressing social stigma that is associated with, particularly when I talk of health and public health, a lot of health issues. There's a lot of lack of awareness. There's social stigma. There's many biases and things that we have to tackle. So I think there's a lot of work to do on that front. And it's important that we see sectors like health and education as very fundamental pillars of building this India of the future. And understand that unless we invest in health and education and really strengthen them, we're not going to get the kind of economic sort of output also that we wish to have. So I think that is a very important link that I've constantly tried to bring into my work, that we cannot divorce these areas and look at them, but we have to look at it much more holistically. So I think that's really been my effort.
Okay. I've listened to many young people this last 1 year, and some of them have brought up this question of mental health. Do you think that's a public health issue or it's a private health issue? What's your view?
I think it's a huge challenge, and I think it's definitely a public health issue, because, like I was just talking, the whole stigma, the social stigma, the lack of awareness. I think it has to be done at scale, and it has to be done, assuming that it is something which is almost like a public good if you're creating this awareness. So I think the government obviously has a very, very big role to play in that. But I think at the same time, of course, it is a very complex issue, and so we need everybody in society, right from the public sector, private sector, media, civil society. I think civil society plays such an important role. We often miss out on that, but I think they really play an important role, especially on catalyzing behavior change, addressing social stigma. So I think that is one aspect of things. I would say that COVID has certainly, improved our ability to have more conversations about mental health. People can talk more openly. People don't feel as reluctant to say that, okay, I'm going to a therapist or I need help. So I think there's a little bit more open conversation, but we have a long way to go in terms of addressing entirely the those issues which are at a social level, and also from a healthcare system perspective, to be able to really provide the requisite mental health services at all levels, right? From primary health care to ensuring that we have specialists, psychiatrists, psychologists. We need many more of these specialized professionals in the country. So I think there's at different levels we need to intervene, but it's clearly a big challenge, and the fact that we are also having a rising burden of other non-communicable diseases, be it cancer or be it chronic heart diseases or kidney ailments. A lot of times these issues are also associated with mental health issues. A lot of patients, who are suffering from these physical health challenges also grapple with mental health issues. So I think it's a big issue, no doubt, for the youth as well as for the elderly. I think, in the elderly populations as well, the kind of surveys and data that we have shows that it is a big issue. There are challenges with loneliness and anxiety and other mental health, even depression, etc. So I think undoubtedly for every segment of our population, it is a big challenge, and we really need to handle it in a very big way. With, I think, the public sector has to take the lead in that.
Okay, that's very helpful. I'm sure the younger people who might see this would be interested in asking you, so I'm asking on their behalf. What do I have to do to prepare myself to get into NITI Aayog?
So yeah, I think NITI Aayog is it's one of those places in the government where there is a lot of appetite to take young people as well as to take domain experts or people with sectoral knowledge. So I think we take people at all levels. We take young professionals who have say up to 3 years of work experience, and then we take more experienced people at progressively higher levels, who might want to specialize in a particular area, or bring certain domain knowledge or certain field experience to the table. So there's a lot of appetite to take people from the outside, who are not bureaucrats, who are not career civil servants, like even I'm not one. So it is definitely an institution which, I think, if I look at the rest of the government, then this is one which has far more appetite than maybe some of the other parts of the government do. We have a portal which is called Work for Niti, and anybody can register their details there, in terms of what are their educational qualifications, their work experience, what are the sectors they are interested in working. And we've now changed it from just putting out advertisements and then recruiting people, to actually looking at these applications on a rolling basis through the year. So you just enter your details into this portal, and if there is a particular need, opportunity in the area that you've expressed interest in, then you'll probably hear quite quickly from the administration. So we've tried to, and of course then there's an interview, etc. But at least the time that it used to earlier take, for us to put out an advertisement, for people to respond to it, it used to often take quite some time. We are trying to cut that down so that it becomes easier for people to also come into the system. So I think people from all fields, really, all sectors, are very welcome, because, as I said, Niti has a mandate to work in all the different areas, to work with all ministries, all states, and sort of really anchor also initiatives like the Viksit Bharat, etc. So I think people from all backgrounds, really, who are interested in working in the policy space, they should definitely register their details in this portal.
Yeah, but that's the formal part. What they want to really know is what kind of courses should I take, what sort of qualific CV should I build for myself, what is it that will make me attractive.
So yeah, so like I said, there's nothing, it's not that it's only one type of course, or it each level has different kind of requirements. So like I said, you can even be a young professional who's just done a master's degree. It could be in any field, and that's fine too. You enter at that level. Or you could be someone who's worked in civil society, you worked in an NGO, you worked in the private sector. We do have a lot of people who come from the private sector also. So I think it's there's really no one kind of profile. It depends on what is the fit between what is the sector, who is really looking for an opportunity in that space, at what level are they looking. So I think that is what it is. Obviously, if you are somebody who's coming at a higher level, there will be some expectation in the interview that you would at least know some more nuances of that particular area. Say if I'm applying for monitoring and evaluation, which is an attached office of NITI Aayog, then obviously people will ask you, certain questions on at least the fundamentals of, monitoring and evaluation. So it's like that, but mostly it will be related to what have you done, why are you interested in the public policy space, what are the skill sets you bring to the table. So I think those are the kind of things, and I think to work in the system, it's more softer skills, that I would say are important rather than just your hard qualifications. Because softer skills in terms of how do you deal with bureaucrats, how do you work in a positive collaborative way with them, because sometimes it can be this divide between the government officials and the lateral entrance. So that needs certain softer skills. How do you communicate? How well do you communicate? In writing, in your presentations, how well you can write, because of course Niti is a think tank, so there's a lot of writing work that we do of different kinds, publishing, etc., research. So I think it's a whole bunch of skills, but not that it's any one preferred over the other. But I think anybody really who has a genuine passion and interest in public policy, and they do bring at least some of these skills to the table, I think they would certainly be considered.
Okay, but okay, to change, what is your sort of routine like? I mean, is it like 14 hours a day, 8 hours a day? Whom do you meet? Whom do you talk to? What goes on? We just are curious.
So yeah, so there is no typical day, which is I think something I like, and that's probably why I've also not got bored, even though I've been here for 8 years, because there's a lot of variety. It could be, of course, it could be you doing your own research work, writing work, which is what you do on your own. There are meetings obviously that happen internally, but you also meet a lot of outside stakeholders, because that is Niti's mandate. We're supposed to meet the private sector, we're supposed to meet startups, we are supposed to meet NGOs. So I do a lot of public sort of engagements, also public advocacy engagements, where you're trying to create awareness about certain issues, certain policies, certain programs. There is some amount of interface, depending on which part of NITI you're working in, with states, for sure. So some interaction with state governments, would definitely happen. But I think it's a very I think a lot of people think that in the government it would be easy to sort of work. But if, at least for people like me, who we are not the typical bureaucrats. So we bring, our own work ethic to the table, and so we do definitely stay very busy, and I think the schedule, like I said, can be very unpredictable because there can suddenly be a high level meeting. The somebody high level is coming over. There's some discussion going to happen, a conference going to happen. Right now, a lot of the NITI team is in different districts and blocks across India. Because we've just launched a campaign where we want to improve our performance on certain key indicators in the poorest and least developed blocks and districts of India. So it's called the Sampurnta Abhiyan. So for that, pretty much most of our team is actually right now all in districts and blocks. So there would be travel as well of this kind which comes up. So it's a mixed bag. I think it's a mix of research, writing, meeting internal, external stakeholders, public engagements, public advocacy, um, travel to states, other types of engagement with states. So yeah, there's a lot that's happening, but I think a lot also depends on how much you want to involve yourself in things, how much initiative you want to take over and above your routine sort of work. And I think for me, that's something I've always tried to do, because if I am in the government space at a huge pay cut, and not having many of the benefits that I might get otherwise, then I do want to make the most of it. So I try to do as much as I can, and as much as my time and now health permits.
Okay, since you said something that it's you, so let me ask you, what are the one or two things that you are particularly proud of that you have done at NITI Aayog, which make you think, good, I took a pay cut, but this is the reason I took the pay cut?
Yeah, I think two things that, I mean, like I said, one of the, which I worked on the drafting of these bills to reform the medical education system. And I was probably, the only person from outside the government system. So, the non-bureaucratic, or
Yeah.
probably the only lateral entrant in that way, who was getting an opportunity to actually work on the drafting of the bill. And I think that was and three bills actually. One was for the Medical Council of India, and two more bills for the Ayush councils governing the education related to these areas.
Mhm.
So I think at that young age, and I had just joined NITI, I was very new to NITI, to be able to not just contribute to drafting those bills, but to also, um, excuse me. Those bills also got passed by the parliament. And I think that was something which was a very proud moment for me, because it's rare, in the government space, we say that the gestation period for something is often very long. And here, within just a few years, I could see my work, actually see the light of the day. I think that was something which certainly I'll always be very proud of. The other, I think one was my involvement in the COVID response, where I was supporting one of the core empowered groups, which was working on the COVID response. I was all by myself here in Delhi. My family was in Geneva, different parts of the world. So I was not, I had no support at home, and I was working pretty much day and night. And I was working through the lockdowns. I was going to the office. There was no lockdown for people like me. So I'm very proud that, at that time I kind of just really gave it everything I could in terms of contributing to this huge crisis that we were facing. So I think those are especially two occasions, two initiatives rather, I would say, at NITI that have made me very proud. Also, I think one more I would add, that in 2017, when India presented the first voluntary national review on SDGs at the United Nations high level political forum, then again, I was the only lateral entrant who had the opportunity to be there because I had contributed to the Voluntary National Review. So I was actually there as a part of the official Indian government delegation. So I think these are fairly rare opportunities, especially when you're not, as I said, a civil servant in that sense. To get these kind of opportunities at a fairly young age, I think it was a tremendous, memorable moment for me.
Okay. Any tips you have for younger people, first year college students, master's college students, whatever?
Yeah, I would, like I said, that and that's the journey I took, but of course people can have different ways of approaching it. I wanted to have some ground level experience before I came to the policy space, because I think whatever it is, you're not as connected to the ground as opposed to, if you're in a grassroots organization, or you're in working closer to the ground. So I think certainly for anyone who wants to be in the development sector, wants to be in the public policy space, I think it's important to get very hands-on experience first, before you say that, okay, I'm going to really work on policies now. Because I think, like if I say in the health sector, if you've never seen a primary health center in rural India, then it'll be hard for you, to be actually sitting and, trying to make a policy, because you will be, far removed or divorced from the ground realities. So I think my advice would be that do try to get hands-on experience, whatever might be your sector, whatever might be your area of work. And only then really try to say that, okay, I can formulate policies, or work, because sometimes I see that there's an impatience also in younger people, that okay, we just want to work in this space. But I do encourage them that do find out the ground realities, because we are a very complex country, we are a very diverse country, every district is different. Until you have some exposure to that, I feel that you might not be as effective, in certainly a
Mhm.
policy making role. So I think that would be the only suggestion I would give. But as I said, everybody has a different approach to this. Some people come in, totally fresh into Niti Aayog, they get that experience, and then they go to, whatever other jobs they want to do. So I don't think there's a right or wrong, but this was just my personal
Yeah.
preference and would just be my suggestion to people.
All right. Anything else you want to add here?
No, I think, I would, since I have this platform, I would
Yeah,
just
you
say
have
that,
it. Please go ahead.
yeah, no, I would just say that I think I would encourage young people, especially if they are watching, to really raise their voice for some of these issues which are stigma related, social stigma related, because I think young people are the most powerful voice of change, and I still keep trying to do that. I even though I'm working in the government, but I consider myself an advocate in many ways. I even an activist in many ways, because I keep pushing for that societal change to happen, whether it's mental health, whether it's cancer, whether it's tuberculosis. So I would just encourage, young people to read up on these issues, to make themselves aware, to speak up, and to not think that, it's just their voice, so it doesn't matter, it's too small, because each voice really counts and adds up. So that's the only message I would give through your platform to whoever's watching, but especially the young people.
Okay. All right. If we don't have anything else to add, and I don't want to ask any questions because that's not my role here. My role is to let you speak. Then I think we can end it here. And thank you so much for finding the
Thank you.
time to come and talk to me and to talk to the young people who will be watching. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's say bye to you and to the viewers. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Bye till then.